airport again with Semper Fi. This is Matt, and I wanted to do a short video about something that happened to me 2 days ago when I came down here to go flying. Now, I've posted a couple of videos about hand propping the airplane and showing how you go through the process. I recently, in the last couple of months, if you watched my videos, noticed that I replaced the magneto system with upgraded modern slick magnetos. She's great to start. She starts a lot easier than she used to be. Usually on the first or second blade when you're ready to start, she'll start. Sometimes, as would happen 2 days ago, she'll start when you're not ready for her to start. But first, a little description about how a magneto switch in this airplane is actually set up to work. Okay, if you notice, I'm looking at the mag switch. Now, mine's a little bit faded, but on the far left, where the switch is right now, it's marked basically off, which means your mags are supposed to be off. You'll then see an L, an R, and a B. And you can move the switch in between them, like this. There I've got it set on L, which is for left. That's R, which is right. And that's B, which is both. And then again, that's all the way off. Magnetos are always hot, meaning whenever the prop spins, they move, and whenever they move, they produce electricity. What your mag switch does is it either leaves them alone when it's up on both, or it grounds one or both of them. Through a ground wire, basically it short circuits the circuit so that they won't fire when they're grounded. So when you have the switch back where it is right now in the off position, both mags are said to be grounded, therefore short-circuited, so that movement of the propeller and movement of the magneto won't cause a spark. When you put the switch up into L, you are turning the right magneto off or grounded. When you put it into R for right, the left magneto is off or grounded. And when you have it up at both, neither of them are grounded. They're both hot, and they both will send sparks to their respective spark plugs. So what happened 2 days ago was I came down here ready to go flying, and I went through my normal startup procedure. Took the cover off, pre-flighted the airplane, checked the oil, did all that. And then I made sure that it was still chalked. One advantage of being in this hangar is I can start the engine while it's in the hangar. So I checked to make sure the chocks are on. I'll untie the wings, but I'll leave the tail still tied down. Got a row of hangers right there, and worst case scenario, when I started, the plane wants to move, I want to make sure it's tied down so I don't smash into whatever that thing is in that hanger over there. I don't know. Anyway, so I came down here, made sure the mag switch was off, turned the fuel on, pulled the prop through 4 times, which is what I usually do. When you pull the prop through each time, the venturi slightly opens as long as the throttle's cracked. You'll pull a little bit of the fuel air mixture out of the manifold up into each cylinder. So you want to make sure you get some of that fuel air mixture in each cylinder so that when you go to start it on a compression stroke, one of them fires and it starts. It's pretty warm here. I'd flown a couple days earlier, so I thought I was going to start pretty quick. So like I said, I made sure the mags were off. I pulled it through 4 times. And then usually I'll pull it through 1 or 2 extra times. Usually a 5th or a 6th blade, I'll pull it through just to make sure that the cylinders have had time to get a fuel air mixture in each cylinder. After pulling it through 4 times, again, while I'm doing this, I'm sure the mags are off. I reached up and I went to pull it through the 5th time, and it started. With the mag switch off, when I pulled it through the 5th time, it popped and it started. Now, one of the advantages of the Piper Cub is you can prop it from standing behind it. So I was standing right here. Tail's tied, it's in the chocks, throttle's only cracked. So when it started, it startled me, and I stepped back right about here, and I wondered why my engine was already running. I looked in, and I confirmed that the mag switch was still off. I went ahead and moved the mag switch up to both, and it ran fine. Now, why did that happen? With traditional switches, when you have a problem, maybe they won't send electricity down the line. However, in a magneto switch, the electricity is always going down the line, and the magneto switch's job is to interrupt it. If you have an old switch like mine and a very humid environment, you can get corrosion buildup on the small brass indentations behind the switch. Therefore, even though the switch was set to off, there still was not a significant connection being made in the switch for the ground to go into the magneto. Even though it was off, the mags were still hot. That's why, although I had the mag switch set where it is right now to off, when I pulled the prop through, as soon as enough fuel air got into the cylinder, it started. So, what do we do about this to keep this from happening? What my mechanic said to do is every time I come out here, before I touch the prop or introduce fuel or do anything, cycle the mag switch back and forth 3 or 4 times. That way, if you have a buildup of corrosion or moisture in there that's interrupting the grounding series, you should be able to get past that. Also, probably when I go into this airplane and do some restoration work here soon, on my list is to replace that with a newer mag switch. But I'll go with a newer style so that I can get past probably 75 years of a little bit of looseness in the switch. I'm reminded of a lesson from when I was a little kid. When I was in elementary school, my dad used to take me out to all the little grass strips like this around my hometown of Pensacola, Florida. We'd often see Cubs and Taylor Crafts and Arankas and airplanes with this type of magneto switch. And my father, who had been around airplanes like these since he was a little kid too, always said, don't ever touch the prop, because you don't know where the mag switch is set, or even if the mag switch is set off, you don't know that it's an old corroded one, so there's not actually a ground going to the mags. The mags aren't grounded, no matter what the switch says. If you turn the prop, you'll get a spark. And with it tied down in the chocks, throttle cracked, even though it started when I wasn't ready, it's perfectly safe because I was behind it. Airplane wasn't going anywhere. Still, it was a bit of a surprise. I hope you learned a little something about how magneto switches on these old classic airplanes work. Remember, you're walking around airplanes, don't ever touch the prop. If you have a Cessna Skyhawk, even though it's got a key magneto switch, works the same way. If it's a bad switch, they can still not be grounded, even though there's no key in there and they're off. If there's no ground, it can still fire if you touch the prop and move it. So be careful. Hope you learned something. If you like these videos, hit subscribe, hit like, tell me what you think in the comments, and keep flying. And as a bonus, this guy's been out here all morning practicing touch and goes in his Piper Cherokee.